Hey, John here. Today I want to bring you this video about UAPs. And I want to talk about UAPs because things are different now than they were prior to this event that I'm going to talk about. And what's different now is that the government has declassified videos. That's been out for a while now, a couple of years. The mainstream news around the entire world is talking about it. On Wednesday, July 26, 2023, two former Navy pilots and a retired Air Force major and former intelligence officer testified at a Senate hearing about what they heard and saw concerning UAPs. The White House press is asking about it. So there's a lot that's different now. And I want to talk about why I think this is happening and why I think this has opened the floodgates of unidentified aerial phenomena talk. Not only that, but talk about actual extraterrestrials. So the first video I want to show you is about 4 minutes, and this is Jeremy Corbell talking about the Senate hearing. Jeremy Corbell is a documentary film producer, and he's speaking about David Grush, the retired Air Force major and intelligence officer. So check this out.
And Jeremy Corbell is a documentary filmmaker who played a big role in bringing these questions to the public. If he looks familiar, that's because he was sitting behind Fravor, Grush, and Graves today in that testimony. Okay, Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us. I gotta say, though, man, pilots seeing weird stuff flying around in the sky is one thing, but someone coming along and basically saying what sounds like exactly all of the UFO crash conspiracies I've ever heard growing up, and then saying, I can only share details in a skiff with people who have clearance? Like, come on. What's your take on that?
Gotti, I think you know my take, which is that it wouldn't be shocking if you had been paying attention. Why David Grush can't say these things in public realms is because he's a whistleblower. He is exposing something that's been going on a long time. And I will tell you, I was there all day, days before, helped set this up. They wouldn't allow for a secure facility for him to speak just today. So you have to understand, it's only shocking if you haven't been paying attention. Today was a historic day, Gotti, and I think you understand why. We have never had people of this credential and credibility, not just saying they saw things with their eyes, but backed up by sensor data. These aren't just pilots saying they saw something. These are pilots testifying to what's already known.
And one of the most bizarre parts of today is this back and forth where it was like, hey, I want to tell you more, but I can't. We'd have to go into the skiff and you'd have to have clearance. So what happens now? Grush says he's turned over a very specific list of names, hostile witnesses and cooperative witnesses, and specific locations, or a location where a craft may be or crafts may be. Like, what happens next, and how soon are we going to see some of these Congress people go into skiffs and get some of these possible briefings from Grush?
Yeah, so that is correct. So people have to understand that David Grush, so he came to George Knapp, my mentor in journalism, and me first. He came because of reprisal. He came because he was fearful because of this reprisal. We took a lot of time and vetted him. He came forward to the world. He is a true whistleblower, a patriot. He is doing this because it is the right thing to do. It's what he was taught to do. This is literally, the world is watching David Grush right now. How we handle David Grush's account, what he saw, what he knows, is how everybody else who is willing to break from the fold and tell the truth to the American public about the presence of UAP or UFO, which is fact, it is true, it is real. But how you get these people to come forward is how we treat David Grush right now. Let's investigate his claims like the Inspector General did, and by the way, found it credible and urgent what he said. So they found his claims through their own investigation to be credible and urgent. David Grush is telling you how it is, whether or not you can accept it. And I can't wait for him to be able to tell his full story publicly to everybody, because the American public, they don't only have a right to know, Gotti, they have a need to know, because the implications of what he's saying, if they are true, which they are true, Gotti, but everybody should make that determination on their own. When you have AOC on one side and you have Representative Tim Burchett on the other, and they are agreeing on a topic that everybody can get behind, it gives me hope. This gives me hope that we can unite and get together on things, even if we disagree. Let's find out the truth. And we are now at a critical moment, a critical point where the right questions are being asked by the right people. And let me tell you, it's a pressure cooker. The meetings I've had today, what's going on here in D.C., and where this is going, I think that there is nothing now that can stop whatever the truth is, whatever UFOs, UAP, represent to humanity, which I don't know the ultimate answer, but whatever it is, we're going to learn more, and that is encouraging.
It's crazy to think that this is what it took to remind us all that we're all human.
If this is correct, then this changes the fabric of our understanding of what it means to be human.
Seems like the truth is out there. At this point, I don't care what it is. I just want answers.
So I've got a few things I want to point out. Number one, it is what he was taught to do. I don't know what that means. What he was taught to do? Who taught him how to do this? And why? Number two, the whole entire world is watching this man's testimony. I find that to be very interesting. Number three, it is fact, it is true, it is real. This is, I believe, a conditioning of the public. This is opening the floodgates of this stuff here. And I believe that the public is being conditioned that this is fact, this is true, this is real. Number four, the Inspector General found Grush's claims credible and urgent. Suddenly, this is urgent. It wasn't before, but now it's urgent. Number five, Corbell said that the public needs to know. It's time for the public to know what the government fully knows about UAPs and their pilots. Number six, you've got state senators on both sides of the aisle united to find the truth. And this reminds us that we're all human, even though we don't agree on everything. I'm telling you right now that there's going to be a future event that reminds everybody of this, just like 9/11 did for America. Remember, people were united across America. It didn't last long, but they were united. In the future, there's going to be an event that occurs. I believe it's going to revolve around the so-called aliens, and it's going to unite everybody. This next video is 5 minutes, a little bit more. I'm going to show you this video from Behavior Panel. Now, if you don't know who these guys are, they're four men, and it's Scott Rouse. He's a body language expert and analyst who trains law enforcement and military in interrogation and body language. Mark Bowden, he's an expert in human behavior and body language, helping people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility, including some members of the British aristocracy and members of the G20. There's Chase Hughes. He teaches interrogation and body language. He did 20 years in the U.S. military. He's a trial consultant, trains public and private sectors in persuasion and influence. And Greg Hartley, he's a former Army interrogator, teaches interrogation and resistance to interrogation. He's written 10 books on body language and behavior. He spends most of his time in corporate America and on Wall Street. And I got to tell you, these guys are experts. And they did over a 2-hour video analyzing David Grush's interview with News Nation. That was the exclusive interview that came out before he did this Senate hearing. And the video that I'm going to show you is their overall conclusion, what they came up with analyzing his interview.
All right, Mark, what do you think we've seen at this point? How's it look to you?
Yeah, what do I think we've seen? Well, I'm glad to be towards the end of it all now. I think we've potentially seen a pedantic, grudge-bearing individual with the potential, I think, for unwittingly or wittingly being a source of disinformation. Chase, what do you reckon?
I'm going to go long on this. I apologize. I sat for a while this morning trying to figure out just what it is that's making me uneasy about this whole thing. It feels dark to me, and it feels like something is off about this. And it has the feeling of a person involved in something bigger than themselves, as if they were maybe told to make this happen, maybe told to blow the whistle in an orchestrated way. And this has the hallmarks. This has the hallmarks of a disinformation campaign. I'm the guy that trains the U.S. Army Psychological Operations Command on this stuff. Unusual tonality, like we saw here, happens often on stage. Unusual and repetitive phrases happen often on stage. Immediate delivery of lines without taking time to process questions happens on stage. Lack of anger about things you're supposed to be angry about happens on stage. Immediate mouth closure after delivery of lines happens on stage. Vagueness happens when questions are asked that aren't in the script on stage. This feels staged or somehow artificial, and I'm not saying it is by any means any of that, because maybe he believes most of this. I think it's possible he believes most of this, but something is very off and almost seems dark about this. And the second thing I wonder about is whether this is about the greater good or him, if the first thing isn't true. Greg?
Yeah, so we're following the same path. Let me tell you this. There's two things. I'm going to give you two possibilities and then talk about something specific. First of all, when you are swimming in oil, you begin to think that oil's okay. Or as I say, fish taste like what they swim in. So if a fish swims in oil, they taste like oil. If, in fact, what you've been doing for the past 10 years, 6 years, 4 years is talking to people who have seen UFOs, you then become much, much, much more susceptible to whatever you hear. You know, skeptics, even if all they hear every day is UFO talk, UFO talk, UFO talk, it gets more difficult for them to discern. So let's assume for a minute that he's been doing these interviews, and now somebody comes along and says, hey, we got a bunch of them back behind the door. Now he falls for that. Now he becomes a true believer. That's one possibility. The other possibility is he's an outright disinformation campaign. The reason I feel like he's more like the second is because I see that squelched smile. It's not a compress, contain emotion or information. It looks more than one time with that chin boss eruption and all that, like he's trying to contain a smile because his upper face is smiling. So then I go, okay, if it's disinformation, why? Is that disinformation because he's disgruntled? Is that disinformation because of something? But there are also two really good indicators that he is hurt, bitter, or something. Mark, the bitter girlfriend, the bitter boyfriend thing in there, that you can't miss. So those two pieces, I think, Chase, it's one of the two, in my opinion, and I don't conjecture which. I just say these are my options that I can see. And then when you add that bitterness, it makes it dark and makes you wonder, what's going on here? Scott, what do you got?
I think this guy's on a mission. I think he's been set to say this, whether somebody said here, like you were saying, you got to go say this, but this is on purpose. I really think this is disinformation. And I think this has been set up by somebody else. At the beginning, he says, I always want to be a part of something that was bigger than me, just like you were saying, Chase. I always want to be a part of that. And by doing this, by being the sacrificial lamb is what it's supposed to look like, then that's what he's doing. It's about time for him to get out anyway, with what he's doing. Why not go ahead and do that? And if all these people came to him pretty much in this short amount of time, start talking to him about it, why would they choose him to talk about it? Why would these people be telling him other than that? So whether it's something he's at the beginning just said, you know what, I will do that, or they pushed him out of it and he doesn't realize it. I think he does realize what's happening, but there's always that chance that he didn't realize that's what happened. But I think he's on a mission. I think he's doing this on purpose, and not for the morality of it or the ethics of it at all. But that's just what he puts it on. So he has to get angry and come up with his anger when he talks about that. I think that's why we're seeing that there. But he always wanted to be a part of something that's bigger than him, and this is the way he can do that, because he's not going to get in trouble for what he's saying. He's already okayed or had okayed everything that he would talk about. So I'll end it by saying I think he was on a mission.
So something that really stood out to me was that it feels dark. That's what Chase said. Something bigger than himself, and that he was told to do this. Straight disinformation. Was he conditioned to believe, or straight disinformation? On a mission of disinformation, sent as a sacrificial lamb? This is all a bunch of phrasing that I find very interesting, and it has to make you wonder why. Why would they do this? Next is a short clip with the Pentagon official that runs Aero. I don't think he runs it anymore, but Aero is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, and it's his job to weed through hundreds and hundreds of UAP video, and for him and his team to try and figure out what the explanations are and put them in different buckets. Some are totally explained, some aren't. So that's what Aero does. This is a very, very brief video.
A long-term intelligence officer, scientist, and military officer.
Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, in his first television interview after a year on the job, told us everything is on the table.
What keeps you up at night?
Technical surprise. And that could be adversary technical surprise or extraterrestrial technical surprise.
Just another government official open to the idea of extraterrestrials being valid. The last video we have is Dr. Alan Greer. And Dr. Stephen Greer, for over 30 years, he has provided briefings for senior government officials across the globe, conducted numerous media interviews, and delivered hundreds of lectures. He has also written 5 books and produced feature film documentaries that have been seen by hundreds of millions of people. Dr. Greer's career began as an emergency and trauma physician, where he worked as an emergency room doctor and ultimately served as chairman of emergency medicine at Caldwell Memorial Hospital in Lenoir, North Carolina. He founded the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or CSETI, in 1990. Soon after, he founded the Disclosure Project, aimed at publicly disclosing the extensive and deeply classified information about UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and advanced energy and propulsion systems, culminating in the groundbreaking National Press Club disclosure event in May 2001. During this event, over 20 military, government, intelligence, and corporate witnesses presented compelling testimony regarding the existence of extraterrestrial visitations, as well as the reverse engineering of their energy and propulsion systems classified by government projects. Let's take a listen at what he has to say.
I think they're concerned that the technologies we've gotten from studying these extraterrestrial vehicles that we have downed are now being turned into weapon systems targeting extraterrestrial vehicles out in space. So this technology curve, it may have gone slowly from 45 to 54. It was like this, and then it could boom. And so it's a nonlinear development of technologies covertly that aren't under the supervision of most of the Pentagon and White House and even CIA and Congress. It's in this rogue operation that tells very little of what they have, and they can use those technologies to do two dangerous things: stage a fake alien attack, sort of a false flag, which I think is imminent, frankly, and secondly, target extraterrestrial assets, which is a huge risk, right? Where at some point you have to ask the question, even though I'm quite convinced these ET civilizations are fundamentally peaceful, you don't know, where is the red line? How far can you push into this and create a threat where humans are a threat before they have to intervene?
So he said two noteworthy things, though, in the video. He said he thinks there will be a fake alien attack, and that will happen imminently, which means at any moment. And number two, he thinks if we push the real aliens too far, then there will be a real alien attack. So either way, he thinks that aliens are going to come into the picture here. So my question is, why now? And I'm seeing all these Christians talking about the same thing, and I'm wondering if I can explain why they're talking about it, because they're looking at it as part of biblical prophecy. And there's all kinds of things happening right now. AI technology, anti-Semitism is at an all-time high, Christian persecution, globalist agenda, wars and rumors of wars everywhere. These are all prophetic things that the Bible talks about. And these are things that even Jesus himself has talked about. So I'm going to talk about a couple things here. Just hear me out here. It says in John chapter 14, the first 3 verses, it says, "You believe in me, or you believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions, many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go and prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again, receive you unto myself. And where I am, there you may be also." And so he was talking to the disciples of his, and they were all Galileans. And so they knew that he was talking about, he was making an analogy of a Galilean wedding ceremony where the groom would come, betroth the bride to be, and then he would go and he would build a room addition onto his father's house. And when it was done, he would come back and get his bride. The bride would step onto a platform, be raised up in the air, and she would, quote unquote, be flown away to the father's house. And so the disciples knew that picture, and that picture is actually also in a book that Paul wrote to the Thessalonian believers in the 16th and 17th verses of the 4th chapter. And it says, "For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first, and we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air." And the word's "caught up" there in the Latin is rapturo, and that is where they get the word rapture from. And so after that, Revelation chapter, I think 3 kicks in, and there's a 7-year tribulation on earth. Jesus says it's worse than any time on earth that's going to happen. So, and we see that this is kind of, there's pictures of this throughout the Bible. We see in Genesis 7, everyone sees Noah and their family go up into the ark, and then the ark rises up above, and God's wrath is poured out below. In Genesis 18 and 19, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, everyone sees Lot and his family leave, and then God's wrath is poured out. And in Exodus 19, we see God come down onto the mountain in a cloud, and Moses climb up to be with the Lord up in the mountain. In the end of Mark and Luke, in the beginning of Acts, the disciples see Jesus taken up into heaven in the clouds. And these aren't the only places. This is just a few references that we see those rising up to the clouds. Now, connecting this with everything that we've talked about before, this Christian rapture is going to look exactly like an alien invasion or a mass alien abduction of Christians. Only it's not going to make sense to some who call themselves Christians that aren't taken up. They're going to wonder why they weren't taken up. I'm telling you right now, I don't think the Pope is going to be taken up. I think he's going to stay behind. I think there's going to be Catholics that are going to stay here. There's going to be Catholics that aren't going to stay here. There's going to be evangelicals that are going to stay here, and some that don't, and on through all the different religious sects. Some are going to stay, some are going to go. So it's going to be mass confusion, and especially as cars and trains and boats and planes are void of drivers and engineers and captains and pilots. Eventually, the dust is going to settle, and you can be guaranteed 100%, no doubt about it, this mass abduction is going to be blamed on aliens. And this is why Christians are talking about it. They believe that Jesus is on his way, and they believe that those left behind are going to go through 7 years of tribulation. There's going to be one who rises up above and looks like he's got all the answers. But midway through, 3.5 years into this tribulation, the tribulation starts when this man confirms a peace treaty with Israel. And then 3.5 years later, he is actually going to step into a newly resurrected temple in Israel, and he is going to claim that he is God. And there's going to be sacrifices, animal sacrifices again, and he's going to stop them. And he's going to claim that he is God. And he is going to make everyone, free or slave, rich or poor, take a mark. And without this mark, or the name of, or his name, or the number of his name, if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. So it's death if you don't take it. But if you take it, you have to worship him. So this is what's coming. And so that's why I wanted to put this out, talking about aliens, because this is a huge, huge piece to this whole puzzle. And so I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll get to put together another video, and just keep your eye out for that. Thanks for watching.